Hello, everybody. Uh, Thank you for joining us today. I believe we had a few technical issues earlier, but I think all of them have been sorted out, so we can start off this great event. Today, I will be presenting you Austin Casey. He is a product line manager for material handling at Sunbelt Rental, and he will be going over the struggle for off-road charging standardization. You can go ahead and take it away, Austin.
Awesome. Figuring out how to share here. I think that's it. There we go. Awesome. There we go. Good morning. And good afternoon to those of you across the pond. This will probably be the simplest presentation that you'll see at this conference. But hopefully that makes my message easier to internalize. My goal is for you to leave this talk with one or maybe two pretty straightforward key takeaways. And I'll just start off with them. The first takeaway is that the equipment rental industry will lead the way when it comes to the success of sustainable or zero emission equipment. The second one is, in order for us all to grow and to advance to the next level of electrification, we need to reduce exclusivity and to push commonization, and especially when it comes to the way we charge electric equipment. A little bit about me. I am a lifelong equipment rental guy. I've loved construction equipment since I was a kid, and that makes sense since I grew up in the industry, multi-generational family deal. I've lived and worked in 5 states, both running rental operations myself, and for about the last decade, I've held various roles related to managing large equipment fleets. These days, I tend to the almost $15 billion fleet of Sunbelt Rentals as a product line manager. And that means that I specifically focus on maximizing life cycle throughout its life, and even more so focus on material handling products like forklifts and mobile elevating work platforms like boom lifts and scissor lifts, those sorts of things. And that's a picture of my fiance, Kara, and I, and she has a lot of patience because she's dealing with a significant other.
Hey, Austin, real quick, your slides aren't showing on the presentation. Just want to make sure we get you right. There you go. Now it is.
Oh, that would be helpful, huh?
See if you can put it in presentation mode, yeah.
Don't put it in presentation mode?
Yeah, do put it in presentation mode. That should help.
Can you see it now?
No. Try and make it, say, instead of sharing the browser, can you share the screen? Sorry. We want to make sure we can see your stuff.
Yeah, that would illustrate my point pretty well. Let's try this again. Maybe this way.
Let's see. All right, I think we're good there. Yep.
You got it? I can just do it in PowerPoint.
All right, that works.
Yeah, I'm pretty familiar with Teams and Zoom and everything else, but you guys' proprietary video system's a little different.
Yeah, it's a little bit different, but this will work. You're just making sure that we see what the slides are.
Yeah. So restarting, I had told you that there was a couple points, and then, as I said, a little bit about myself, and there's a picture of my fiance Kara and I. She has a lot of patience. Another who volunteered to speak at an electrification conference a couple days before his wedding. So I appreciate that. Okay. First, an early disclaimer, because I'm so entrenched in it throughout my life, and it's a big part. I'll use the term rental quite a bit, just so there's no confusion. Unless I tell you otherwise, I'm referring to equipment rental. And that's most often that means construction equipment, but as you'll see, there's a lot of other types as well. I'm not talking about blockbuster rentals or enterprise car rentals, but to most of you who are unfamiliar outsiders looking in, our basic rental concept isn't really all that different from an enterprise rent-a-car, in that we rent equipment to help bridge the gap and get things done. And then when you peel back the onion a few more layers, you'll see that our industry, our rental, has a bit of a different look and feel from some of the other ones you may be familiar with. And that's mostly because we provide end-to-end solutions. We rent lots of different types of equipment to a plethora of different customers in a variety of industries. Like I mentioned, construction, the industrial segment, live events and production, and countless more. The difference between us and those more consumer-focused rental businesses is that when I say end-to-end solutions, I mean that customers at every phase of their job or project. And what that means is, from the outset, we help assess, determine what kind of equipment they need. Then we deliver it to them by truck at a chosen location at a specified time. We provide any service, training, certifications, anything that may be needed to operate that equipment. And then when they're finished, we come pick it back up and return it back home. And then we repeat that process many, many times with many, many different types of equipment throughout different phases of the job. So construction equipment rental strategy isn't all that hard to grasp, but the size and scale of our industry may still surprise you. Equipment rental has grown exponentially over the last couple decades, so much so that for a decade now, over half of all construction equipment produced is sold into rental. And there's a reason for that. The last couple decades, we've seen contractors specifically make a major shift away from owning equipment and into renting it. That maximizes efficiency for the contractors by always allowing them to have the optimal fleet size. Increased competition in the construction world requires higher efficiency, and that's what rental provides to our customers. And many of those customers are actually large fleet owners themselves. But as I said, the optimal fleet size and increased efficiency is important. That efficiency is a lot of things. And one of the efficiency driven things that has really taken off in recent years is the sustainable aspects of our business. And by sustainability, I mean it in a couple different ways. There's the sustainability that's inherent to the rental cycle, as well as a very deliberately practiced sustainability. So, like I said, rental is inherently sustainable because, as I mentioned before about maximizing efficiency, rentals are at the heart of what's known as a circular economy. So rather than just being produced, used, disposed of in a normal cycle, rentals circular economy allows our equipment to be produced, shared, and then at the end of its life, recycled or refurbished to be reused, shared again. And that means that rental companies have the newest fleets possible with the most current technologies possible, which is obviously clearly correlated with multiple types of sustainability. Let's see if I can zoom this. So when you start putting a little bit of math to it, those inherent factors of sustainability start adding up pretty quickly to meet environmental goals. Just choosing to rent your equipment rather than own it, like the case is with the mini excavator I have here, greatly reduces emissions because when compared to ownership. Besides just the inherent efficiencies, many of the large rental companies, like my company, Sunbelt, have strategies that are directly impacting environmental sustainability. While I can't speak in depth to all of them, I know that at Sunbelt, sustainability efforts are an integral part of our long-term strategy. And you can see that reflected at all levels of our organization. With a strong vision and a very well-documented commitment to being an industry leader in the sustainability space, Sunbelt's executive team has made it known that we're dedicated to goals of ensuring sustainability for the good of our customers, as well as for the good of the world we live in. In recent years, there's been an even more intense focus on the sustainability because more and more of our largest customers are prioritizing it. Our largest customers are some of the largest and most well-known companies in the world, as well as the contractors and third-party services who are also employed by those giant companies. And of those really large, often tech-related companies, you'd be really hard-pressed to find one that didn't have an ESG strategy or some sort of mission associated with carbon reduction. And when those companies look to fulfill their environmental promises, guess where the logical first place they go is? Yeah, you guessed it. It's us. The multitudes of heavy equipment that we rent become a pretty easy first target for carbon reduction. And more job sites, especially large ones, are requiring a variety of sustainability objectives just to get onto the site. So those Fortune 500 companies, they have a variety of directives for anyone and everyone that builds or services or provides any kind of business to business service for them. So stepping back a little bit, in summary, not only are our largest customers leaning on us to advance sustainability, but more tiers of customers below them who are serving them are also being leaned on to adhere to those sustainability requirements. The combination of the inherent sustainability of rental and those deliberately green practices makes us rental operators leaders in the field of sustainability much more than any individual could be. Because if you think about it, if you, as a retail customer or anybody at home, decides to go green, you can undertake something like buying an electric vehicle, getting a charger installed in your garage, all that kind of good stuff. When we're asked to go green or have a zero emissions job site while we're building a new industrial park, we have to first find out how to get an immense amount of electricity out to a large open empty field. Then we have to install up to hundreds of chargers at multiple charging stations. And then we come in with a diverse fleet that ends up completely changing different types of equipment throughout the different phases of construction. And that's how equipment rental was kind of put in the driver's seat of sustainability, at least in the off-road world. We believe electrified equipment's here to stay. The electrification of new types of formerly combustion powered equipment isn't going to slow down anytime soon. Earlier, I mentioned the similarities and the differences of our equipment rental with Enterprise or Hertz or those types of car rentals. But when it comes to electrification, we're actually on very different ends of the spectrum. In the equipment world, our customers rent before they buy, whereas it tends to be a bit of the opposite when it comes to on-road vehicles. I mean, from the big car rental players, I think, at least in the United States here, it wasn't until very recently that you even had the option to rent electric cars, which makes sense because here in the US, less than 1% of our on-road vehicles are electric. Compare that 1% to my company, at least, where at over 20% of our fleet is hybrid or electric. And within our industry, within equipment rental fleets, you will find the world's largest owners of almost every type of electrified or hybrid off-road equipment. And surprisingly, even some of the world's largest owners of on-road electrical vehicles. I bet you didn't expect that. So, with the largest and the newest of fleets, along with some helpful encouragement of our largest customers and some sustainability goals of our own, hopefully it's starting to become clear as to how and why equipment rental have become leaders in sustainable solutions. And that's important because the advantage of having a lot of equipment and a lot of alongside well-defined sustainability objectives is that it provides the rental industry an opportunity to have a perspective and an understanding that few others do. So, outside of the obvious environmental impacts to the greater world, why does that matter to you? That matters because it means that when it comes to sustainability, and even more when it comes to specifically to the electrification of off-road equipment, we're the innovators. We're the initial consumers. And essentially, we are the off-road electric machines dress rehearsal for the rest of the world. That new technology and the wide breadth of our equipment allows us to function as sort of a forward-looking microcosm of the world we live in. It grants us the ability to experience progress and to see trends before most anybody else, oftentimes even those who manufactured the equipment. That means that at every stage of this new electrified equipment's life cycle, we see all the positives as well as all the negatives well before most average individuals or even any other industry would. A lot of it's obvious. It's probably no surprise to you that up front, all of this electrified off-road equipment is more expensive. It requires new understandings, new methods of servicing. There's certainly a lot of challenges and a lot of risks when it comes to electrified fleet. But what we've seen emerge lately is what we've seen throughout is a significant long-term challenge of customer adoption of the product. While our largest customers might be leaning on us to advance sustainability through electrification, the same can't be said for the majority of our customers who are smaller or more local. Because if you think about it, if you're running a construction crew, a single crew, and you're trying to keep a few jobs on time and on budget, and engine-powered equipment has always worked for you, there's not a whole lot of motivation to go out and change over to renting electric equipment. That's why we look to develop electrified products that maintain that reliability and that functionality that combustion products did, but still provide additional benefits above and beyond. Real reliability and that confidence in our equipment is a crucial part of the promise that we make to our customers, because those customers depend on us day in and day out to make a living. Needless to say, through all of our trials and tribulations with electrified fleet, we've learned a lot. Amongst all of that learning, there's been one part that really continues to stand out as a significant obstacle within electrification, and ultimately a significant obstacle that hinders the progress that we collectively are making in sustainability. That obstacle is exclusivity, or uniqueness, or uncommonality in spec, and especially in those very products we're electrifying. No matter the equipment, when manufacturers don't embrace standardization, Commonization, when manufacturers push proprietary features, especially when it comes to critical functions like charging the electric machine, those manufacturers are promoting regression from the overall goal of electrification. And ultimately, regression from sustainability as a whole. Nowhere is this more apparent than in the electrical charging process as a whole. In our world, in the rental world, non-standard, incompatible, uncommon chargers, plugs, systems, all of that make life harder. And they make product electrification less attainable, and they make our customer adoption less likely. Just put yourself in our shoes. Just here at Sunbelt Rentals, we have 15,000 different types of equipment at over 1,200 locations. Our fleet comprises 2,500 plus different brands of equipment. So what if we had to make with different voltages and different amperages and different charging times and requirements, along with different plug types, for even just a small portion of those 15,000 different types of products? We'd have to hire entire teams of people just to manage all of the different charging styles and plug types. And that's just me thinking about the initial conspicuous impacts on our frontline business, whereas there's many more that aren't seen up front. In the short term, proprietary features may work for individual consumers or even maybe brand-specific equipment dealers, but they do not work whatsoever for mixed fleets. And so we've concluded that eventually they will also not work for the population as a whole. For equipment manufacturers, there are plenty of ways to differentiate your product. And differentiating on the charging system is the absolute worst way to do it. But uncommon or proprietary charging systems, they're nothing new, nor are they unique to our industry. There's many examples. A good one that you probably have in your home or your friends is Apple. For many, many years, people have complained about Apple's proprietary charging systems. And finally, in the last few years, Apple began using common USB-C ports to charge their iPads. And actually, as some of you may know, in Europe, legislation has made it so that in the next year, Apple will be selling their flagship product, the iPhone, with common USB chargers rather than proprietary Lightning chargers. Anybody want to make a bet that we won't see the same thing happen in the United States? Another example you see here and that is happening today real time is Tesla here in the US. Tesla has an immense proprietary charging network that for years and years has only worked for their vehicles. But Tesla has already started plans to open up their network to all on-road electric vehicles. And they've actually promised that by the end of next year, they will have opened over 7,500 charging stations to all brands of electric vehicle. I'm sure I could name more because there's countless examples of electric products with proprietary charging systems. And eventually, even the biggest pushers of their own systems back down and embrace commonization. If Tesla and Apple, who've built their companies on proprietary features, can shed their ego and embrace commonization of chargers, then I've got to believe that equipment manufacturers can do the same. I've done my best to illustrate to you why uncommon charging systems are one of the biggest threats to off-road electrification adoption. But the real question is, how do we solve it? Well, in keeping with my straightforward and simple themed presentation, let's not overthink this one either. Let's take the easiest route. The answer is right in front of us, literally on this slide. Let's use the technology that on-road vehicles have been advancing for decades. Let's outfit our forklifts and our skid steers and our boom lifts and everything else with ports that allow for standardized EV charging. Because without doing a single thing, we already have a network of hundreds of thousands of chargers all across North America and additional access all across the world. And those chargers aren't limited by any specific ability. There's various levels of charging that allow for all types and sizes of vehicles, and same with equipment, to refuel at any speed. Here in the United States, we call it level 1 and level 2 plugs, and level 3, which is fast DC charging through CCS1 plugs. None of this is rocket science. It's kind of a no-brainer. I told you this was pretty simple. The on-road car industry has already been through many trials and many errors over a couple decades to get to this point. So let's, in the off-road world, not relive and let's not remake all of the same mistakes that those guys did. Let's learn. If you haven't gotten my most important point in my talk today, even more clear. This is a call to action for off-road equipment manufacturers to embrace commonization in charging standards. I'm not an engineer, and I understand that it's much easier said than done, but I've at least presented you with a easy, well-established, widespread, common solution. And until somebody, one of you, gives me a better solution, that's what I'm sticking to. But it isn't just me. I have the support of organizations like the American Rental Association, the Association of Equipment Management Professionals, my company, Sunbelt Rentals, and many more. And we all stand together on this one point. Equipment rental, as I said before, has the unique ability to see and to experience trends before many others. This is a trend that's clear to all of us. We can see that not embracing commonization in mixed fleets is a losing strategy, and eventually will be a losing strategy for everybody. Our customers have more than enough to do without having to figure out what charger goes to what electric equipment. Today, combustion machines are refueling from a common source. You just call a fuel truck out to the job site. It comes and puts diesel in your excavators and your bulldozers. So when that same equipment is electrified, our customers don't want to now have to manage all different sizes and all different types of fuel trucks to power the same equipment. And that's essentially what having uncommon charging systems is. I told you earlier that for the average customer at least, one of our biggest challenges is the adoption of electric equipment. And it's a hurdle that many of us continue to develop and try and solve. But if we want our customers to adopt electrically powered equipment as a majority, and ultimately to advance sustainability, then we have to make this whole thing easier. I know we, Sunbelt, looks to partner with and to fill our fleet with manufacturers who make equipment electrification easier for our customers. And we believe that it won't be long before the rest of the equipment world follows suit. Still pretty simple, right? So I want to run back over my first couple points that I started the presentation with, because that's really what I want you to leave here with. The first one is the equipment rental industry will be a primary driver of the success of sustainable equipment. Hopefully I've shared enough with you that you understand why the equipment rental industry has and will continue to maximize sustainability opportunities at all different levels. And the second, and probably most direct point, is equipment spec, differentiation, uncommonality, whatever it is, regresses sustainability. In order for us all to grow and to advance to the next level of electrification, we have to reduce exclusivity and we have to push commonization, and especially when it comes to the way we charge equipment. That's most of what I had to say today. I apologize for the technical difficulties, but I appreciate the time and for listening in, and would love to hear from any of you if you have alternative solutions.
Thank you, Austin, for your great presentation. I think we have a couple questions in the chat. If you'd want to address any of those, be happy to.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. Let me catch up here.
I'll let you read them over.
You're still on slide 1. Yep.
See, I think your mic's not on.
Can you hear me?
See if you go over to mute.
Can you hear me now? Hello?
See.
Awesome.
See.
Hello?
Your microphone on? Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, there we go. Sorry. All right. So see what any questions you'd like to see.
Yeah, I'm scrolling up here. Every time somebody says they can hear me, it goes to the bottom of the chat. Let us link up. Yeah, I can get the notes out of this, right, and make contact with some of these people.
Yes.
Problem is mention zero. Somebody asked, I find the mention of zero emission construction sites to be interesting. Is this normally more prevalent in specific regions, i.e. California, or do you see this requirement in many regions? Here in North America, the most prevalent is by job site and by customer, who and what our customers are building for. But in places like California, they do have folks in kind of forward-looking regulations and zero emission goals that we rent into. Does your company only rent equipment or does it also operate? We only rent stuff. You believe that a customer would rent electrical equipment because it is ecologically correct, or rent just for the cost of rental and or operating? Certainly there are some customers who rent because it's the environmentally right thing to do. But like I made the example, when you think of very small customers who are a very big part of our customer base, it's not affordable enough yet to do so. Realistically, we're still working together to bring costs down on electrical equipment, and there's been a lot of advances. But realistically, a lot of times that's money that people don't have to spend.
That makes sense. So, let's see.
The rest of it looks like people saying they can hear me.
Yeah, we can definitely hear you. So let's see. Does Sunbelt have a charging specific to drive, let's see, commodity across their fleet?
A charging specific? What do you mean?
Yeah, specific regions. Let's see. I'm sorry. Let's look at here. Specification, sorry, to drive commodity. So is there a specification that you all would like to see? I don't know if that's something that you would know, if there's a certain charging spec or charging type that you think is most prevalent out there. I know there's a lot of different ones, but maybe something that you think is a good one that out there.
Like, are we talking brand, or are you talking, because kind of my whole deal was, as of right now, it seems like what the car industry's already built is the easiest common charging standard.
Yeah, not so much as a brand, but just a type. And if you see that, hey, maybe is it all in this industry? Is it all different right now, or is there some standardization? Did we lose you or no? Okay. All right. I think that's it. So thank you all. Oh, there you're back. All right. I was like, we lost you for a second.
Yeah. Sorry about that. I didn't hear. If you said anything, I didn't hear it.
Oh, you're fine. Is there any chargers out there that, like, you see that are more prevalent than the other ones right now, or is it all just different?
It's very manufacturer specific in the off-road world, at least.
Okay.
Yeah.
So nobody's crossing over yet.
No, there's some good ones. There are some companies who are starting to get it and who are trying to make things easier. But as a mixed fleet operator, we need the commonization. We can't afford the differences.
No, understand that. Is there anything else you'd like to talk about? Or
No, appreciate you guys having me
there. Well, we appreciate you coming out, especially since you're getting married. And I hope you hope the wedding goes well. And we were glad to have you here.
Awesome. Thanks a lot.